All right, so are you ready to dive into some serious celebrity drama?
Sounds fun.
So this one is particularly juicy because it was requested by you, the listeners.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about celebrity arrogance.
Ah, yes. Always a popular topic, right?
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we see these figures, constantly in the spotlight, larger than life,
Right.
and sometimes their behavior just rubs us the wrong way.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about the nature of fame and, and how it affects people, right? I mean,
Totally. And for this deep dive, we're looking at a list from the top10s.com.
okay,
It's their top 10 most arrogant celebrities list.
interesting.
Now, before we get into the specifics of the list, I think it's important to define what we even mean by arrogance, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean,
What is it exactly? It's not just about confidence or having a strong sense of self-worth, is it?
right, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a step beyond that. Arrogance is more like this inflated sense of importance.
Uh-huh.
Like a belief that you're superior to others. And it often comes with a lack of empathy and a disregard for others' feelings or opinions.
Right. So it's that whole I'm better than you attitude that can be so off-putting.
Exactly. And, this list gives us a glimpse into which celebrities the public perceives as embodying that trait.
And at the very top of the list, we've got some big names.
Oh, yeah.
Kanye West,
Okay.
Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
and Kim Kardashian.
Wow, those are names that, really evoke strong reactions, both positive and negative.
For sure. And the comments on this list really reflect that. I mean, some people are calling Kanye a disgrace for comparing himself to rock legends,
Right.
while others are praising his artistic vision. It seems like there's this fine line between arrogance and self-belief, especially when it comes to creative expression.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And if you think about the historical context of artists like Kanye, I mean, throughout history, groundbreaking musicians and artists, they've used provocative statements and bold self-presentation, as a way to challenge norms and kind of push those boundaries.
Yeah.
It's almost a form of rebellion in a way,
I
to
see.
disrupt the status quo and assert their individuality.
So you're saying they're arrogant, or at least the perception of it becomes part of their brand as an artist.
Exactly. It can be a very calculated strategy to stand out, to be remembered,
Mm-hmm.
and even to provoke a reaction from the audience.
Hmm.
Think about someone like Salvador Dali. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
known for his outlandish behavior and surrealist art, was he truly arrogant, or was it all a performance,
Right.
a performance to shock and captivate?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
And then you have figures like Trump and Kardashian, where it seems like courting controversy is just part of how they stay relevant.
Oh, absolutely. They definitely understand the power of media attention.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to use it to their advantage,
Hmm.
even if it means, generating those negative headlines.
Right.
In a way, they're playing into the public's fascination with those, larger-than-life personalities. We kind of both admire them and judge them at the same time.
It's true. It's almost like we have this love-hate relationship with these people. We're drawn to their confidence and their charisma.
Right.
But then their perceived arrogance can also be a total turnoff.
Yeah, it really speaks to the complexities of human nature,
It does.
both, in those who seek fame and those who follow it.
Okay, so moving down the list, we encounter other personalities who kind of evoke that arrogance label,
Right.
but for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Bieber, for example, he gets a lot of criticism for his perceived lack of talent despite his massive success. Is it a case of like the public feeling like he hasn't earned his fame, and so his confidence just comes across as arrogance?
It's certainly possible. I mean, when someone achieves that level of fame and fortune that just seems out of proportion to their talent or contributions,
Mm-hmm.
it can create resentment and skepticism among the public.
Right.
And that can definitely color their perception of the person's behavior, making even small things seem arrogant or entitled.
Yeah, and then you have someone like Lindsay Lohan, whose struggles have been highly publicized.
Oh, yeah.
Her transformation from child star to troubled adult has really fueled this perception of arrogance,
Right.
as if her downfall is a result of her own bad choices and inflated ego.
That's a really interesting point. It highlights how public perception is often shaped by these personal narratives and media portrayals.
Yeah.
And in Lohan's case, the out-of-control child star narrative has become so pervasive
It really has.
that it's almost impossible to separate her personal struggles from her public persona.
So it's like we're holding her accountable for her past.
Hmm.
And any sign of confidence or self-assurance just gets interpreted as arrogance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the power of storytelling and how it shapes our understanding of people, especially those in the public eye.
Right. And it makes you wonder how much of what we perceive as arrogance is based on actual behavior
Yeah.
and how much is projected onto them based on our own preconceived notions and, the narratives we've been fed by the media.
That is a crucial question, and one that we'll definitely continue to explore as we delve deeper into this topic.
Okay.
But for now, I think it's important to take a step back and consider the bigger picture.
Okay.
What does this list tell us about our cultural obsession with celebrity
Mm-hmm.
and our tendency to both idolize and tear down those who stand out from the crowd?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into celebrity arrogance.
Yeah.
So in the last segment, we started unpacking, what arrogance even is, how it differs from confidence,
Mhm.
and how public perception kind of shapes how we view these larger-than-life personalities.
And it's really interesting how the same behavior in different people can be perceived so differently.
It's true.
It just goes to show, how subjective all of this really is.
Absolutely. I mean, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, right?
Yeah.
Flaunts his wealth, his physique, the luxurious lifestyle.
Right.
But many fans see it as aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like he's earned the right to be arrogant through his hard work and success.
He's a fascinating case, isn't he? Because on the one hand,
Yeah.
you have those classic signs of arrogant behavior,
Mhm.
the lavish displays, the unwavering self-belief.
Right.
But then on the other hand, he's known for his dedication, his philanthropy,
Mm-hmm.
his commitment to excellence.
Yeah, so it's not so black and white.
Not at all.
You can't just, slap the arrogant label on someone and call it a day.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting, because it makes you wonder, is there such a thing as good arrogance?
Good question.
Yeah.
I mean, history is full of people who were considered arrogant,
Right.
but who ultimately did amazing things, made groundbreaking contributions.
Think about Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Famously demanding, controlling, with this unwavering belief in his own vision.
Uh-huh.
Some might call that arrogance.
Right.
But that same drive led to some of the most innovative technology, of our time.
So it's like that fine line between arrogance and ambition.
Precisely. And I think a lot of it comes down to motivation.
Okay.
Is it about personal gain and ego?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it about pushing boundaries, striving for excellence, and ultimately, benefiting others?
It makes me think about all those comments on the list we were looking at
Yeah.
about celebrities being famous for no reason. Like,
Right.
they haven't earned their platform, so their confidence comes off as unearned arrogance.
That's a good point. And it speaks to, this cultural shift we've seen with reality TV and social media.
Hmm.
Fame itself has become this commodity,
It really has.
something that can be attained and leveraged in ways we never even imagined a few decades ago.
Yeah, you used to have to actually do something significant to be famous.
Right, exactly.
Like have a hit song or win a championship or invent something groundbreaking.
Mhm.
Now you can have millions of followers just by being charismatic on TikTok,
Which raises some really interesting questions about what fame even means these days.
doesn't it?
And whether, those traditional markers of arrogance even apply anymore.
Right, because is it arrogant to be confident and self-assured when you've built this huge following by just documenting your life online?
It's a blurry line for sure, and I think it forces us to reevaluate our own ideas of what arrogance is in this new era of fame.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of arrogance, the role of public perception,
Right.
and even the changing nature of fame.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, from a psychological perspective, what drives this behavior in the first place?
Okay.
Is it always rooted in insecurity, or is there something else going on?
That's a question that psychologists have been trying to answer for ages.
I bet.
And there's no easy answer. But some theories suggest that arrogance can come from a deep need for validation
Okay.
and a fear of being vulnerable.
So it's like a defense mechanism.
You could say that by projecting this image of superiority and, being invulnerable, people might be trying to protect themselves from feeling inadequate or rejected.
But doesn't that usually backfire? I mean, real confidence comes from self-acceptance, not from trying to prove yourself to others.
Absolutely. And that's where the difference between arrogance and healthy self-esteem comes in.
Right.
True confidence is about embracing your strengths and your weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
while arrogance is more about masking those insecurities with, a facade of superiority.
This is getting pretty deep.
Yeah,
I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
we could.
But I want to shift gears a bit and talk about the media's role in all of this.
Okay.
I mean, celebrity gossip and scandals are a huge part of our media landscape.
They are.
So do you think the media perpetuates and maybe even profits from this perception of celebrity arrogance?
I think there's no doubt about it. The media thrives on drama and conflict.
Yeah.
and portraying celebrities as arrogant, entitled, out of control, that often gets those clicks and views and, boosts sales.
Right. It's almost like we're complicit in this. We devour these stories, we judge these celebrities, and then we complain about how arrogant they are.
It's definitely a complex dynamic, and it's important to be aware of how our own consumption habits, contribute to this culture of obsession and judgment.
So what's the solution? Do we just ignore celebrity culture altogether?
I mean, that's probably not realistic for most people, but we can be more mindful consumers.
Okay.
We can choose to focus on content that celebrates genuine talent and positive contributions,
Right.
rather than just feeding into the drama machine.
So it's about being selective with our attention.
Exactly. And, remembering that celebrities, despite their, larger-than-life personas, are ultimately just human beings
Right.
with their own flaws and vulnerabilities, just like us.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into celebrity arrogance.
It's been a fascinating discussion, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. We've covered so much ground. I mean, we've talked about the definition of arrogance, the psychology behind it, the media's role.
Right.
It's complex.
It really is.
So now I'm wondering, where do we go from here? How do we kind of navigate this whole world of celebrity and fame and, the occasional arrogant outburst
Right.
without losing our minds?
That is the question, isn't it? I don't know if there's a perfect answer.
Right.
But I think a good place to start is by developing a sense of critical awareness.
Critical awareness, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's about being a more mindful consumer of media and information.
Okay.
Questioning what you see and hear, not taking everything at face value.
So, like, not just blindly accepting the narratives we're being fed.
Exactly, because as we've discussed, those narratives are often shaped by agendas.
Mm-hmm.
The desire to entertain, to get those clicks, to sell products. So it's about taking a step back and asking yourself, what's the real motivation behind this story? What's the bigger picture here?
That makes sense. It's almost like being a detective,
Yeah.
looking for clues and putting the pieces together.
Right. It's also about being aware of your own biases.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've seen how, our perceptions of arrogance are often influenced by our own values.
Right.
Our experiences, even our own insecurities.
So what seems arrogant to me
Mm-hmm.
could seem totally fine to you.
Exactly. And it's important to recognize those differences.
Yeah.
And try to understand where they're coming from.
So it's about having empathy.
Absolutely.
Not just for the celebrities.
Right.
But for everyone who might have a different perspective.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure things out.
Right.
We all have our own ways of dealing with the challenges and pressures of life.
I like that. It's a good reminder that behind all the fame and fortune, celebrities are still human.
They are. And human beings are complicated.
They are.
Contradictory, always changing. We mess up, we learn, we grow.
It's easy to forget that when we're busy judging.
It is. We can get so caught up in the trauma and the gossip.
Right.
But there's always more to the story than we see on the surface.
I think that's a great takeaway from this whole deep dive,
Yeah,
Celebrity arrogance might be entertaining to talk about,
for sure.
but it's just one small part of a much bigger and more complicated picture.
Absolutely. It's a reflection of our culture,
Mm.
our values, our obsession with fame, even our own struggles with identity and self-worth.
So maybe instead of just focusing on the celebrities and what we perceive as their flaws,
Mm-hmm.
we can use this as a chance to reflect on our own relationship with celebrity culture
I like that.
and how it affects how we see the world.
Because ultimately, it's not just about them, it's about us.
That's a great point. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dives into celebrity arrogance.
Yeah,
It's been a really interesting conversation, and I hope our listeners learned something new today about, this whole world of celebrity and fame and all the complexities that come with it.
it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise.
And I hope our listeners will continue to think critically about these issues.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back soon with another topic to explore.
Sounds good.
Until then, stay curious, everyone. Sin is final.